My name is John. I'm a grateful, recovering alcoholic and addict. It's such an honor to be here tonight. What a fantastic crowd. This is just beautiful. I would like to take a moment to ask God to help me guide my words this evening so that I can hopefully have the opportunity to help someone in need. My name is John. I'm a grateful, recovering alcoholic and addict. My story starts as a very hopeful one in the beginning. The stories, I'm sure, are very similar to anybody's in this room, with a few variations here and there. I won't get into any drugologies or drinkologies. That's just not my style. But I grew up as a middle child of 7 in Boston, Massachusetts. I was born there. My dad was in the Army, and my mother was raising 7 kids. My dad was an alcoholic. And my first instance of alcoholism was when he fell asleep with a cigarette in the bed and burnt us out of our house. So we had to move from our home into a Red Cross facility that they allowed for us because we had such a large family. So we moved to a pretty rough neighborhood at the time for us. So it was tough. Not long after that, my dad he passed because of his alcoholism. He abused his alcoholism, didn't have a good, strong hand on it at all. And my mom was left with 7 kids to foster and to bring up on her own. Pretty tough. And as a matter of fact, I spoke to my mom the other night. I heard a story from her for the very first time, which was probably the saddest story I have ever heard. But, I wouldn't have been able to share that with my mother if I wasn't sober today. So here I am today. I'm just grateful to be here. Such a wonderful peace of mind that I'm at. When I grew up, it was a pretty turbulent time back then. I was in Boston, Massachusetts. It was rough. I went to a high school that was really big on sports and athletics, and I dove into that. That was my opportunity to engage and to become social and to become noticed. So I played football, I ran track, played basketball. I ended up getting a scholarship. Well, let me go back a little. As I played high school football, we had a very winning team, so we became pretty popular. And that was when I had my first drink in it was like in my junior year. We used to have these football parties, and I remember, I'll never forget it. I had drank a pint of vodka, and I drank it in 3 sips. This is my first time ever drinking. And back then, there was this thing going on called streaking. Some of the older crowd might know what I'm talking about. Kind of embarrassing, but to the younger crowd, it was you just basically took all your clothes off and ran through a hall or somewhere. Well, I did that, drunk, hit a concrete pole, blacked out. My younger brother was there. He brought me home. So here I am the next day with both a hangover and a knot on my head. And I'm telling you, it was pretty bad. At the time, too, I skipped a little piece here. Before that, as a kid, coming up, I was hit by a car, and I had broke the car. It was a hit and run accident, and I had a bit of a TBI, a brain injury, and it kept me a little. I had dyslexia, and then that just added to the issue on top of it. So I had a rough time coming through school because I was ADD. I was on that special bus. Literally, I was on that little short bus, and back then we didn't have the helmets. We had a chest protector. So it was kind of rough for me because at that point I learned what the fight was all about. And I learned that I had that dog in me, that fight in me. And this is going to be rough as a kid. So as time went on, I had to go back to when I was in high school. Once I started my drinking career, then even though that situation was catastrophic, I still drank socially as a high school student. I ended up getting a scholarship to play at Boston University, play football there. I noticed that my alcoholism was increasing to a point where, it kept me from doing things as normal people would. I wasn't making classes. I was found myself unable to pay bills, to do the things that normal people would do. But it didn't bother me. This was just a way of life for me. It was the way that I thought life was supposed to be. Of all the 7 children in my family, each and every one of us is in sobriety today. We all are clean and sober. And for my mother to have 7 kids grow up with both alcoholism and substance abuse, it was something for her. I did lose sibling to this disease. It was my sister. She died back in 1995 through this disease, and she's very young. She was 26 years of age. That devastated me, and at that point in time, I had a hard time engaging and becoming, I just didn't want to be involved. I just wanted to withhold and dig in and yada yada. Well, at the time I was in school, I was in college, I had become quite the drinker, and I became quite adamant about, I was very egotistic, and I was able to, you couldn't tell me anything, and there was nothing I couldn't do. So I ended up going on the 6-year plan in college, where I never graduated. I actually dropped out of college. This is I got to tell you this story. I dropped out of college. I had 102 credits. I was in my senior year, my last semester, and I decided to drop out of college because I wasn't getting enough drinking time in. I had to have enough party time. So I dropped out of school and decided to go into the Peace Corps. And I went into the Peace Corps, and it took a while for me to get in there, the background checks and all that stuff. But once I got into the Peace Corps, they sent me to Chad, Africa. And I was over there doing water irrigation, and found that I thought this was going to help me get away from my alcoholism, and actually made it worse. The amount of alcohol and beer that was shipped over there for the Americans was absolutely astronomical. I mean, cases of just sitting, inside of a building somewhere. You just go over there and pluck whatever you wanted. So I came back from that, and also battled my alcoholism. At that point, I had decided that I was going to find another career, and I decided to possibly go back to school, which I never did. And I'd come back to Boston, and what I did was I'd met a woman, and at that point in time, we fell in love, and I got married. And she was also an alcoholic at the time, but we were, it didn't appear to be anything to be concerned about. So mine got worse, she got sober, and I got a resentment out of it. And out of all of that resentment, my drinking became worse and worse and worse. I ended up going into the Marine Corps, and I went into the United States Marine Corps, and they sent me to sent me to Quantico, Virginia. I went from Camp Lejeune, Paris Island, Camp Lejeune to Quantico, Virginia, and they put me in the Marine Security Guard Battalion, and I was doing embassy duty, and of all places for me to go, they sent me back to Chad, Africa. So here I am, of all the places in the world to be. I went to Chad, Africa 2 times. Let me tell you, it was a hellhole over there. So it was a mess. But I came back in one piece. The military had a little more restraint on me. There was a lot more restrictions and requirements, and so I was stable. Well, however, though, one of the things, especially in the Marine Corps, is you got to drink. To hang out, you got to drink. You got to be able to hold your own. So while I was married and engaged in my alcoholism further than I had ever been, I had a son, and my son was born at Quantico, Virginia, and I have a hard time with this piece. I don't know how many times I've thought about it. So my son was born with a birth defect, and he had a port wine stain, they call it. It came right down the middle of his face, and it was this purple raised plaque area on his face. And I remember holding him day in and day out with tears, crying. I knew this kid was going to have just a terrible life, And I just didn't know what I could do, as a parent. I was struggling with my own alcoholism. I was struggling with my own personal issues. I had called into my commander's office at the time, and he said to me that he wanted me to see this doctor that was up in Chevy Chase, Maryland. So I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said that this was trying to discover this new type of surgery, laser surgery, and they basically took my son in and they shot all these laser darts. Make a long story short, he had 12 surgeries. The surgery would come on, the scab, it would heal up, yada, yada, yada. And he subsequently became this most beautiful being that I've ever known to this day. The mark was removed. The military paid for every cent of it. Total surgery came to $42,000. I never got a bill. And at that point, before that, I was questioning God. And after that, I was believing in him. So God was always there in my life. In the book, God's name is mentioned over 500 times. And I'll tell you, I'm here to mention it even 501 times, 502, whatever it takes. Because God was always there for me, but I was having a hard time accepting him or even understanding him. I'll put it to you like that. I just had a hard time understanding. I had a hard time with religion, and I had a hard time with spirituality. So I was struggling even worse. My alcoholism was even worse. At that point in time, I started dabbling in other things as well, and it just became a spiral downhill type of event. I got out of the Marine Corps, and I went to work at the Department of Defense at the Pentagon in Northern Virginia. And while I was there at the Pentagon, I had a great job. I was working with youth advocacy programs, and we were helping all the youth centers through the Department of Defense, pretty much around the world. So I traveled a lot. I traveled extensively. The problem was that I also had a family at home, and while I was traveling, I was indulging in my alcoholism. I had no boundaries. I had no restrictions, no guidelines. And quite frankly, for me today, my strengths and my wisdom, that's where I excel best. When I have those guidelines and I have those boundaries for me to follow, I'm able to utilize my best assets at that point. And I didn't have that, so things got out of hand. At that point in time, I'm out of the military. My sister, I knew she was having problems. This is when she passed. I went into a deep destruction, and I had left my wife and my child because I was out using and blacking out and unable to be a productive male for my family. And I think today, if I had any, not even a regret, but if I had anything that bothered me the most was that, as a man, I had a hard time not being able to do that. I was there all the way up to that point, but for that period of time that I wasn't, it really bothered me. And today, because of this program and because of the people that come here in fellowship, I'm a much better person. But back then I wasn't. So when my wife and I broke up, I was in touch with the VA at this point in time, so I checked into a psychiatric ward. This was my first connection to trying to get some help. It wasn't because I wanted it. It was because my wife wanted it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm kicking this. Is that me? Yes, it is. Okay, that's God telling me I must be saying something wrong here. Let me check that out. Just step away from this cord. So what I did was I checked into a psychiatric ward at the VA hospital, and that was my first introduction to any type of structured help for my alcoholism. I'll be back. I'm coming.
One at a time.
Anyway, I dabbled back and forth in that. I went through the whole, I'm sure the story's similar. I got out of programs. I ended up going through 6 psychiatric wards. I went through 7 programs. I was committed to a psychiatric lockdown facility at the VA in Salem, Virginia. I was committed to a psychiatric ward. And I'll never forget that day. I was just having popcorn and soda, watching a movie. The rest of the guys hanging out at the psychiatric ward. Fun place to be. Popcorn was fantastic, though. I gotta tell you. But this judge comes in. He asked me to come into an office. I went to an office, and the door slammed behind me. I'm thinking, okay, well, I might get some ring dings and ding dongs or something. And they committed me. They actually, the judge rather, committed me to a lockdown psychiatric facility, which I stayed in there for 60 days. And it was literally a vision of Run Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Everything that you saw in that movie, I was involved in. I might have been a second in that movie somewhere. I had a little role in it, but it was a wake-up call for me. It really was. Now, this was in between all these programs, and finally, I had an opportunity to engage in a program with the VA this is about my 6th program. I did it because I wanted to do it finally, because the pain and the anguish and the disgust and the disrespect of my own self became so strong, so painful, so degrading that I had to do it for me. Because for doing it for everyone else, when I did it for everyone else, I always fell right back to that same old plan, right back to. So if you're struggling today and you're trying to find something new, and you need to dig into yourself, that's the first place that I know I had to go to in order to find, sobriety and to find a place for me to become clean and sober. The second thing I had to do was to find God. I had to find where my spirituality was and where my connection was. I struggled with that all my life. I couldn't understand this whole religion piece. I couldn't understand this whole spirituality piece. They just didn't make a connection for me. So I dabbled and looked at all different religions and came back and forth. But I had this phenomenal mother. As I told you earlier, I was the middle child of the 7 children. I had this phenomenal mother who was a Christian-based woman who is involved in the church into this day. She's 88 years old. She's the spark of my heel. She's the light of my eye. She's the piece that I call ground for me. She's absolutely incredible. And through these periods of time, she always found a way for me to find it on my own. It was never here, take this, do this, take that. Don't worry, God will reveal himself. He will show you how. He will show you the way that you need to get there. And as those times went on, as these little situations got on, I built up a little bit of spirituality, and I built up a little more, and I started going to meetings, and I started to connect. And one thing I discovered was I found this element of fellowship. And I realized one day, hey, maybe the connection between religion and spirituality is the ability to fellowship. People coming together for a common ground, no matter what it is. One alcoholic and an addict helping another is unparalleled. It's absolutely paramount for me in my recovery today. And at that point, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina. And I had to have some surgeries done to I was in the military. Well, I got out of the military and I had some injuries. I was in the first Persian Gulf War and I hurt my knee. Long story short, I got out on a medical disability. I was also diagnosed with a few other issues, bipolar and PTSD and these things. The medical side was another area that I needed to address because, I never wanted to say that I had a problem. Even as a kid, I never wanted to say I have this issue because I just couldn't put that label on myself. But, I've realized that it wasn't a label that I needed. It was an encouragement that I needed. Okay, I have this. Maybe if I do this, this will help it out. So I learned this pattern of planning things and figuring out things so I could be a better person. And I did. I took my medication. I wasn't going back and forth to the psychiatric facilities anymore. I noticed that. I wasn't in and out of the psychiatric wards, and that was a plus. When they start knowing your name when you first come in, and they start waving to you, hey, how you doing, John? Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. But I thank those people so much, though the employees that are, or the person that is able to work in that industry to help people, because our recidivism rate is so high, and to be able to sit there and help someone and watch them struggle and come back, I've got a lot of respect for that. So today, I try to see that in myself sometimes too. I try to be able to say, what are the best things about me that I can offer to somebody else today because of this program. I wasn't able to make those connections until I was able to understand my spirituality. When I understood my spirituality, I had a better concept of me because I understood God. I understood what God was trying to do with me. He put me through those things so that I could help somebody else with what they were going through. I'd like to share with you where I'm at today. Today, after going through those parts of my life and looking back, and in retrospect, I think about, what happened, the way they happened, the pain, the anguish, the wretched person that I was, and I come to a point in my life today where, I have this opportunity that God has given me. I have this opportunity to survive. I have this opportunity to provide, to give, to motivate, to instigate a more positive way than what I was regularly induced to. Back then, coming up for a very long period of my life, I was unable to learn. I was a kid. I was a kid up until I was 45 years old. So today I'm learning how to be an adult again. I go home, I pay bills, I understand what the importance of engaging with family is. I have this incredible mother that I recognize as a true gift from God to me. It's the most impeccable thing. It's just absolutely incredible. Sometimes I don't have the words to describe her, but just the understanding that what she went through to raise 7 kids that have all suffered with an illness that has taken many lives. So, and to watch her lose, it's something about a parent losing a sibling. There's just something that I pray it never happens to me or happens to anybody in this room. Right? It's just something it's just a terrible thing. So today I have some recovery time, and God is good to me. I wake up each and every morning with this wonderful feeling. Not every day is like that, but you know what? God gave me the ability, as he has with all humans, he gave us the ability to reason. That's what separates us between animals and humans. We have the ability to reason. I have the ability to choose good, bad, or indifferent, or to have a good spirit or a bad spirit, to choose a happy face or a sad face, or a frown or smile, whatever I decide to do. That comes from me. It comes from my mind, my brain. I choose that. I have that ability to do that. I have that ability to stay clean and sober today. I have the skill and the talent to do so, because in every reading, before every meeting, it tells us how to stay that way. It took me so many years to realize that. One day I was at a meeting, this was a couple of years back, and somebody said the subject was how to stay clean in recovery. And someone said, well, just listen to the preamble. It took me 20 years to figure that out. Everything that I needed to know is right here. Every time I come through these doors, it gives me all the information that I need. If I wanted to get a master's degree, I'd go to school and get the information to get my master's. If I want to be a psychologist, I'd do what I have to do to become a psychologist. If I want to have sobriety today, I come to these rooms because I hear what I need to hear. All the data is here. All the personalities are here. The people that have been through this, and the new faces that come here as well. I need to see that as well. I need to see where I was and know that at any moment in time I could be there again. So that compassion element is so important. It is so it's something that, as a recovering alcoholic, that I need to know that I need to have that element. I need to understand the ability to be compassionate, because I've been there. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to crawl across the floor. Beg mercy, God's mercy, to go without any food for days, to not shower, to have pain and anguish where I couldn't even breathe, that the pain was so hot I couldn't even get a breath out. And then to ask for forgiveness. To turn around after all of that, over and over and over again, to turn around and ask for forgiveness. And it was granted forgiveness. God gave me forgiveness. He gave me forgiveness each and every time. And he gives me forgiveness today, too. And I ask for forgiveness because I ask for it. If you want to ask for it, you will receive it. And I get that. And today, I have this ability to understand my perception of alcoholism and where Alcoholics Anonymous can do for me and anybody else who's struggling with this disease. God is the most paramount element of this program. It's in the book over and over and over and over again. If it wasn't for my higher power, whom I choose to call God, I wouldn't be here today. It's just something that I finally had to say to myself, that if I don't find this understanding of what it is that keeps me clean and sober, I'll go right back to where I was. And that element is God. For me, it is. My higher power is, I wake up each and every morning and I thank him. I thank him for the sunrise. I thank him for the birds chirping in my backyard. I thank him for allowing me to get in my car and drive down the road and feel the fresh air driving on me. I thank him. I thank him for coming through these rooms. If no one told you how proud they are of you today to walk through these rooms, through this door, I am. I'm proud of each and every one person that comes through here because I know what it's like to walk through these doors, especially in the beginning. It's horrific sometimes, and it's overwhelming. But because of these rooms and because of this program, which is available around the world, let me tell you, this program is available around the world. I've been to it in 4 or 5 different countries and heard it in different languages, but I sat there and I listened to it. I didn't understand a word of it, but I knew what the preamble was. I knew what was going on. So, for me, I absolutely love this program. It allows me to be a better father, a better parent, a better son. I'm a good husband. Not a husband. I got a fiance. I ain't married yet. She thinks I am, but I'm not married yet. Until that ring goes on my finger, I can hold out to the last minute. But I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for this program. Let me tell you where I'm at today. Today I was living in Asheville about 3 years ago, and I had to have knee surgery. I was at the VA, and I was supposed to go in and out of there for knee surgery for 4 days, in and out. Piece of cake. Well, the knee got infected. They had to take the knee out. I had these high fevers. They put the second knee in. The second knee got infected also. They put a third knee joint in me. I was in the hospital, at the VA hospital, for 42 days. I came out of the VA hospital, and I couldn't go home to my own home because the social worker wanted me to live, to have help, to have care. So they sent me down here to my mother's house. Well, when I went back home, I found my home was robbed. They stole everything out of the house, including the refrigerator with the food in it. That's no exaggeration. It was gone. They left all my pictures on the floor, right where they stood off the table, and everything was sitting right there. And I was clean, I was sober, and I said to myself, I can choose 2 things to do here. I can be mad and be aggressive and be outrageous, or I can think, well, maybe they may have needed it more than I did. I had renter's insurance, covered everything. I came back to live here. I ended up in Southern Pines, where my mom is from here. I used to come down and visit, so I ended up here. Today I have double the amount that I had when I was living in Asheville. I just bought a home in Vass, North Carolina. I've got these wonderful grandkids, so I just babysat today, and it took all my energy. I'm like worn out. But I've had a lot of titles. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but because of this program, the most important title that I have today is called Papa. That's the most important thing to me. Nothing else matters, And if I lose this, and I lose them, and I may create that cycle of alcoholism in them. It's a generational thing, there's no doubt about it, as far as I'm concerned. I need to stop that cycle. So if I have that ability to do something in the palm of my hand like that, I'm going to do the best I can. But that requires me to be sober. It requires me to come to meetings. It requires me to do the steps. It requires me to take the opportunity whenever I can to help someone else who might be in need. And I try to do that the best of my ability these days. Some days are better than others. I don't know all the acronyms and the synonyms about AA. I love this program. I just don't have that mentality. I've always had that short bus syndrome, like I told you at the beginning. But things are okay because of that today. And I'm so grateful to have be called to a meeting, to be able to speak. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I was going to be in front of a bunch of people talking about my story. But I'm here talking about it because I chose to find recovery. And I chose to find recovery through AA. This program, if you're struggling today and you need help with it, keep coming back. If you need someone to help you, all you got to do is ask, and you shall receive. If you can't ask somebody else, ask God. My name is John, grateful and alcoholic. Thanks for letting me share.